Welcome back to another live and amplified Indie Fusion podcast. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and we're back at it again with another amazing podcast. Today, we have a very special guest joining us. We have Rylie Bourne. How's it going today?
It's great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to chat with you. After doing some studying in a little bit, I was started connecting all the tissues, and I was just like, oh, that's really cool. So I've never actually met somebody that went to Edwardsville. I knew that was a
Really?
school.
Hmm.
And when I was in I went to Carbondale, and every Friday night when there wasn't really anything going on in Carbondale, we were like, let's go to Edwardsville and just see what they're doing there.
Really? I didn't
And
realize that. See, we always thought that there was more going on like literally anywhere else.
I mean,
We had like two bars, I guess.
fair. Like, I mean, it was only like one weekend a year where there wasn't anything going on in Carbondale, but it was just always kind of like, oh, it's a Friday night in April. Like, let's go,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
whatever. So,
yeah.
um, but excited to have you here. How's Nashville treating you?
It's really, really good. I have been basically staying in town this summer, and I've never really done that before. I feel like when I first moved here, I kind of hit the ground running and have just been on the road. And I just reached a point last year where that didn't it was just becoming a little too much. So the beginning of this year, I kind of just told myself I'm going to stay in town, focus on writing. I'm able to network because I'm here and I'm able to see my friends play, and it's been really good for me. So
Nice.
I'm
Yeah,
enjoying.
I guess that's the thing some people tend to overlook is you don't get the benefits of living in Nashville if you're never in Nashville.
You're never
So,
there. Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
how, uh, prior to this year, how often were you out on the road? Was it like multiple times a week or?
Yeah, so I've been in a duo project the last 6 or so years. We
Mhm.
started that right after I moved here. So together we were on the road quite a bit. I mean, probably at least 2 weekends a month, if not three, sometimes four um in the summer, but mostly a weekend warrior type of thing. But we got
Mhm.
to overseas last year for the first time, and play in England. So we were there for
Nice.
like 12 days, and yeah, it was amazing, but I think I just needed some time.
Fair, very fair. And then, so you said, or we talked a little offline that you moved to Nashville about 8 years ago.
Mhm.
I where does that inspiration to move to Nashville kind of come from? Was that something that was kind of always the dream once music came into play, or was that kind of coming to visit? Yeah.
Yeah, so my dad is he's always been a musician and a fan of music. My parents used to take trips down here to Nashville quite a bit. And I would go as a kid, but wasn't quite interested in playing yet. So I think once I started getting interested around 17, I started guitar lessons and kind of thinking, okay, I could really sort of take this seriously. And honestly, I wanted to move right then.
Mm.
But my dad was like, please get your degree. So that was something I promised him I would do. So I went to Edwardsville and then moved down here right after that. But yeah, it was always the plan. It's like I
Nice.
know I'm moving immediately after I graduate. So
Fair. What was it about Edwardsville? Was it just closer to home than maybe like Carbondale or SLU or something like that? Or
yeah, I had a lot of friends that ended up going there. And honestly, I initially went to Western Kentucky for a
Mhm.
semester, went down there. It was really cool. I love Kentucky, but being away from home for me at 18, I think I sort of overestimated how I thought I
Yeah.
was an adult and I just wasn't. And came home, and my boyfriend at the time went there. So
Mm.
I was like, this is cool. It's about an hour away from my house. Like I still get to see my family. And so that's what I pursued. Um, yeah, and then ended up meeting my fiance there. Different
Yeah.
guy.
Fair.
So
Awesome.
no regrets.
As somebody else that has also lived in Bowling Green, Kentucky for a short time, was it the allergies that killed you? Because the allergies murdered me, and I had to leave as quickly as possible.
Oh wow, that's an interesting thought. First of all, cool, because
Yeah,
the Bowling Green connection too.
yeah,
Um, No, I don't remember that really
Yeah.
being a thing. I just struggled like
Mm.
um yeah, I just didn't really feel very positive about being there and being alone and everything. But the allergies are so bad here in Nashville
Yeah.
that I actually don't think it could get any worse anywhere else for me.
I actually living in Bowling Green is where I realized or found out I actually had allergies.
Mhm.
Because where I work, so I worked at the TV station at a TV station there in Bowling Green, and our station was right in front of a dairy farm or right behind a dairy farm or whatever. And so that wind hits you just right. All that fecal matter and all that stuff comes blowing in, and everybody was just
Uh-huh.
goofy like crazy. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I bet. In Illinois, I didn't really feel it until this time of year, like when harvest started.
Hmm.
That would always be kind of bad, but otherwise, like it's just year round here
Hmm.
in Nashville. So
Fair enough.
is
I
what
feel
it is.
I feel like it is here in Texas too, but that's just
Okay.
because we've got like all the allergens. It's not just one type of allergen. It's like, okay, you get the stuff up from the ocean, and then you get the rag, oh, you get a little bit of
Right.
everything, and it hits. So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
oh yeah. So you'd mentioned that you were taking your parents came to Nashville frequently, and at that time you weren't really, I guess, excited about music, or were you always excited about music? You just weren't excited about Nashville.
Um, I grew up sort of really in it because as my parents had me in their mid 30s, and at
Mm,
that point my dad had discovered bluegrass, and he was always a musician. I mean, first a bass player, plays guitar, now like plays mandolin too. Um and his mother and her
mm,
father also played, so it's always been a thing. Um but I grew up going to those bluegrass festivals, and I just thought, well, this is, whatever. Like I wasn't really in it, I know a
mm.
lot of people really dive in that
Yeah.
direction, and they're like these prodigy children pickers and stuff. I wasn't that. I kind of avoided it for that reason because I was like, no, I'm gonna like pave my own path, like
Yeah.
do my own thing, whatever. But then by the time I was a teenager, I was super grateful for all of those experiences
Hmm.
growing up. Hearing the harmonies and just being around that type of music affected me so much, and I think that's when it started to sort of switch into
Hmm.
something serious. So yeah, it took me a second, but then once I was in it, I was like, I am all in it. I'm stubborn, and there's no going back now. So
Oh boy, that's cool. I love it. I will say when we first started doing live and amplified, bluegrass was one of the like the first community. We'll call it the bluegrass community. Was one of the first
Mhm.
communities that kind of brought us in. Was like, hey, come hang out with us. We're cool people. Like
Cool.
my partner and I didn't really know anything about bluegrass. It was just kind of like, oh, okay. We heard some music. We saw him flat picking and stuff, and it's like,
Yeah.
that's cool. Let's go
Yes.
there. And then they started educating us on like, okay, these are the OGs. These are who you need to go listen to right now, and
Hmm.
you'll kind of get an idea of what bluegrass is. And
Right.
then here are some up and comers. It was like the infamous String Dusters. Billy Strings was like really starting to come up at the time. And so it was just kind of like, here are the newer people that you can kind of see who you like, who you don't like, and
Hmm.
just kind of go from there. So,
Yeah, no, I get that. I love bluegrass. It's just a part of me, really. I feel like
mhm,
it'll always be there. I've never, like I said, I've never gone all in on that side.
mhm.
I'm always somewhere in the middle, just influenced by a lot of stuff. But I have my dad to thank. Same thing you were talking about, just showing me like, hey, these are the people you need to know and
Yeah.
pay attention to ever since I was a kid. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you kind of made that transition from air into like, okay, music is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start singing, songwriting, like whatever that
Mhm.
initial step was. What was that initial step? Were you just kind of songwriting, or were you learning how to play guitar, piano, some kind of
Yeah.
instrument?
Yeah, so I thought I was gonna have my dad teach me guitar, and then we quickly realized that wasn't going to work because we're the same, like we're too much alike. So we found a piano teacher for me so I could start there, sort of get like a grasp a little bit of theory
Hmm.
before I started guitar, which was great. I love my guitar teacher. Um, yeah, and then after that, what was the question? What was
Oh,
the
just kind of like where you when you kind of made that transition to wanting to pursue music, where did you kind of get your start as far
Oh
as
yeah. Okay,
yeah.
sorry. Totally lost my train of thought.
You're
Um,
free. You're good.
so yeah, once I started guitar, I wasn't very good, but I knew that I wanted to just cover songs and stuff. So at the
Hmm.
time, I mean, we didn't have social media like we do these days, and you're not like posting TikToks and whatever, but I would sit in front of the piano and like video myself on like my super old laptop or whatever, just to even see. Like for the longest time, I didn't even think I was good. I just thought my parents were like telling me that I could sing, and I'm like, I don't really know if I can. Um, but yeah, it kind of transitioned into my later teens, open mics. I think I started playing maybe at 19.
Hmm.
Um, Doing a few open mics here and there, not writing songs yet. That didn't really come about until I was 20 or 21. So
Hmm.
in college, writing a bunch of songs by myself, like in my bedroom and just kind of seeing what would happen there. But my dad also influenced that quite a bit because he just had a really good grasp on like what you kind of need to do if you're going to be serious. And he
Hmm.
told me, like, listen, these people write their own songs. Like, you kind of need to just go for it. And that's what I did. So
Cool.
mostly college was when it really started to kick in for me.
Nice. And then how long after college was it you moved to Nashville? Was it pretty much right after?
Pretty much. It
Yeah.
was probably, let's see, 4 or 5 months.
Hmm.
Um, which was cool because I had that transition time to still kind of be home with my family and everything. And then, like I said, I had met my fiance, and so we both moved down here together, and it was sort of perfect timing. And um, yeah, he knew that's always what I was gonna do also.
Hmm.
So
Now, is your fiance a musician as well, or does he do something completely different?
he's a trainer.
Okay.
Yeah, he
Okay.
trains at one of the burn boot camps here in Nashville.
Nice. So something completely different, and
Yes. Yeah.
it's not just music 24/7 in the household.
No. Well, he is such a fan of music, and he
Hmm.
actually is more of a um metalhead type of
Okay.
guy. Like he used to be in a band, so he used to play drums and sing too, but he's really open to songs that I show him. Like
Hmm.
throughout our relationship, he has become a fan of Waylon Jennings and John Prine, and so it's really cool. I'm like he's very open to new music.
That's cool. That's really cool. It brings a nice balance to the household, I take it. Just
Yes.
you show him some new stuff, he shows you some stuff, and it's like, okay, nice little balance.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice. And so when you moved to Nashville, was that when you started releasing music, or were you starting to play with that as well while you were still in college?
So, yeah, I had written a batch of songs alone,
Hmm.
and I was like, okay, I'm playing enough shows now where it makes sense that I need a product, but I
Hmm.
wasn't really sure what the next step was because, like I said, my dad sort of maybe kind of had a few connections where I didn't have to go to Springfield and
Hmm.
find someone, which I could have done. But I ended up meeting Guthrie Trapp on a Ashley Monroe tour that came
Oh,
through
nice.
Springfield. So had that connection, sort of tried to feel it out if he was interested in producing something, and he set that all up for me. So he produced my first album, which had 8 songs on it. Um, and such a good experience. I had literally no idea what I was doing at all. We tracked all the songs live. Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot the question again.
You answered it. You're good. You're
Okay, I was
you're
like,
you
I thought
answered.
I did, but I was like, was there something else there at the end that I'm leaving out?
Nope, you're 100% good. You answered the question. That's
Okay.
great. No, it's so cool to kind of sit back and listen to these stories about, because obviously you kind of mentioned early on not really having interest in music, but then just kind of the repeated exposure of everything was like kind of wore you down a little bit is kind of the best way that I could think about it.
Yeah,
And
no, that's right.
now listening to you talk about it, it's like, huh, that's so funny because it's like it all it took was like repeated exposure, and now here you are just kind of doing your thing.
I
So
know. I guess I couldn't fight it any longer, you know?
fair.
It's like this was meant for me, but yeah, I'm sorry. After that record came out was
Hmm.
when I moved to Nashville. So I think maybe a year
Hmm.
later, I came down here and then entered a program that at the time was called Segway 61.
Hmm.
And it was supposed to be sort of like a satellite program through Catawba College in North Carolina. And yeah, I think there was 10 of us. We were just encouraged to play and rehearse and write together, and we had master classes and everything. And we were kind of the guinea pigs because it was the very first year they'd ever done something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, Guthrie was my contact for that program too. And he was like, "Hey, you're the same age as these other kids graduating college. I know you don't know them, but you'd be a good fit."
Hmm.
Um, so we were in that program for about 8 months, which is where I met Damon, who has been my duo partner through my duo Lone Hollow for the last few years. So
Nice, really cool. So w- are you still actively doing the duo, or are you kind of more focused on your solo stuff right now?
So we're not actively playing right now. I think we both honestly needed a little bit of a break. So like I said, I kind of like pulled back from being on the road, and
Hmm.
I'm a little bit more into the being a hermit and songwriting type of thing, and he's a lead guitar player. I mean, he
Hmm.
also sings, but um he's really really great at guitar, and everything he plays, I mean, he fits it so well. And so he ended up getting a gig this summer and has been super busy on the road being a side guy. And yeah, I think it's been good for us to just, you know,
Okay.
take a minute.
For sure, for sure. I kind of fall on the side of where you're at. I like being secluded and kind of hermit-ish,
Yeah.
but I've spent a lot of time on the road traveling and whatnot, and I kind of miss that. So I've told my buddy that helps me do a lot of this stuff. I was like, hey, next summer we're hitting the road. Like we're gonna take this podcast and we're gonna do some crazy things next summer, just because I want to see what a if I can handle a summer on the road. And it's obviously not going to be from May to August or whatever, but it'll be like a week here, week there, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
But I just kind of want to see what that life's like. So
totally.
yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I do miss it sometimes. I think I'm
Hmm.
just being a little bit more picky now with what I'm playing.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair enough. You're kind of at a point in your career right now where you can be picky. Like it's like going out to play a bar where you're just ambiance at that point. It's like,
Oh, I know. And we've done so much of that. You know,
mhm,
we've really put in the time these last few years, and playing those places for whatever it is, exposure or barely any money, or no
mhm,
one's listening, no one cares about the original music, you know. Um so yeah, I'm just being a little more choosy of
mhm.
where I spend my time.
Fair enough. Especially, it seems like you've got a pretty solid home life, and just value that home time while you can, because
Mhm.
who's to say in a year it's like, okay, your single just skyrocketed to number one. We're going on tour. We're doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like at the end of the day, that's still the dream.
Hmm.
It just is pretty exhausting as independent artists to do all of that. I don't think people really realize that you're doing all of the back end
Hmm.
stuff alone.
Yeah.
So like I said, we had a crazy busy year last year, and it almost felt like it was impossible to beat it. And I just felt really worn down. I'm like, we're
Hmm.
not going to go to Europe again, or we may not play this theater that we played again. And I'm like, we just have to
Hmm.
eventually, like, I either have to take a second, or we need some help, or
Hmm.
maybe both. Like, just taking some time to figure it out.
So do you think it's you kind of got swooped up in the repetition of being an independent musician instead of just kind of taking a step back and enjoying what you were
Mhm.
experiencing?
Yes, 1000%. I
Okay.
think it's hard to admit, um, because we have been so stubborn about it. We've played
Mm.
almost every gig that's ever come our way. I mean,
Yeah.
genuinely. But I had to sort of get serious
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. Because it's like initially those 12-hour drives to play in front of six people. Yeah, it's fun because you're getting to go out and play and do what you love. But after year 8 of doing it, it's like,
Mhm. I know, and we had such great times. I genuinely do hope that there's more to come.
mm,
Like I said, I think that's the end goal, but yeah, it does wear you down a little bit.
mhm.
We like to think that we're like road warriors, but again, I think he's a probably better at that than I am, and I
But,
just needed a break.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of musicians can relate to how hard it is. I had
Mhm.
a buddy of mine, he just recently started doing like YouTube
Yeah.
he's like, I'm gonna start doing YouTube. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll tell you right now, I've been doing it for 10 years. It's not easy balancing that plus this plus work. And then he's got a family on top of it. Luckily, I don't necessarily have that, but
Mhm.
he's got a family on top of it. He calls me last night at like 11 or something. And he's like, I don't know how you do it. I have no energy. I've been dead tired since 6 a.m. And I'm like,
I know.
it is what it is. So,
Oh yeah, and we played our hometowns kind of a lot. I feel like so Damon's from North
mhm,
Carolina and we would go out there a ton, go up to Illinois a ton. Of course, we started to play some other places, but that's primarily where we were for a while. And it feels weird sometimes, like you go home and but you're trying to live this other life, but you want to
yeah,
visit, but you also have to pack up the van again and just get on the road and it's weird, I think it's just a different lifestyle.
it is. It really is. I totally get it.
Mhm.
Um, so let's talk about the new single you have coming out here in
Yeah.
just about a week. What's the story behind this song?
Well, so like I said, I grew up in a small town just south of Springfield, Illinois. It's called Vernon. 1,200 people last time I checked. And so my parents so my dad and his brothers built the home that I grew up in. And 2 years ago, they sold it because my dad retired, and I had no idea the amount of emotion that would go into something like that,
Hmm.
because that was always my parents' dream. Like, literally, the song "The House That Built Me" was, like, my life. Like, I have dogs buried in that yard. My dad built it because my mom dreamt of it, like, the whole thing. So we moved in there when I was 1, and then I knew that was always the plan. It wasn't a secret. It was like, when dad's 65, like, we're gonna sell it. And, but still, I think it just so much went into that. It wasn't just the house, it was also who I was at that house, or all of my memories at that house. Um, and the fact that I think that phase of life is over, right? Like, it's hard to believe that I'm like, my dad is retired and my parents are downsizing. Like, how could that possibly
Hmm.
be? So I was having all of these emotions, and I brought this idea into Matt Koziel. So I think we wrote this in April 2022, and my parents moved that next month.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's just about the way that simple towns are sort of viewed by society, that maybe there's really not much going on, or why would you live in a place like that or grow up in a place like that? Like, some people just don't get it. Um, but having that perspective after that happened, or knowing it was going to happen, I thought, wow, like, I am so lucky, the way that I grew up in that small, tight knit town with my family, all of us were there,
Hmm.
all of my friends, growing up in the country, doing whatever I wanted. Like it just was so special. So yeah, that's what this song is about and just my life. And I felt like when I left that day, I was like, that is what I want to be doing.
Mm.
After all these years in Nashville, that was the very first time that I felt that. That whatever that was, that little high that you get from expressing something the exact way you
Hmm.
want it to be, and it's so precious to you. Yeah, it was just, it was amazing. So I can't believe honestly that it's gonna be out.
Right. That's cool. I'm really excited to hear it. And the way you kind of describe it, for whatever reason, so I do like marketing and advertising as my full-time job.
Hmm.
And my marketing brain just started kicking into overdrive where it was like, if she wanted to go tour, she could do like a small town tour, just touring this, like just doing like radio tours and playing the song. And I think almost everybody could relate to this.
That's
So,
a great idea.
yeah.
Yeah, I would love to do that.
And it's like that, I don't know, like when I hear stuff like that, it's like my marketing brain just starts taking over. And it's like, oh, nope, I need podcasting brain.
Yeah, I
Like,
need more of that.
yeah.
I need more.
Oh, yeah. And so with this song coming out, you're like on the final week of before release. What's running through your mind right now? Where's your headspace at?
It's pretty I'm equal parts excited and terrified because I'm a pretty it's funny that I've chosen songwriting as my career and passion because I do have difficulty being vulnerable. So knowing that this is such a special song and something I've never done before, we've released quite a bit of music, but
Mm-hmm.
nothing ever this special to me and this precious. So yeah, that's why I'm a little scared. At the end of the day, this is my truth.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't necessarily have expectations of it other than wanting people to feel the same,
Mm-hmm.
to relate.
Absolutely. And I think you touched on something very special there was authenticity.
Hmm.
Like that's as a person that listens to music, and I listen to a lot of music. Like obviously with Live and Amplified, I think last year I had over 300 out listened hours on my Spotify play,
Wow.
some
Mhm.
kind of crazy number like that. And just that everybody's always searching for that authenticity. And the fact that you feel that with this song, um, once you start getting it out there and sharing this story, yeah, I think it's going to be a real interesting rise to see how it goes.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm really excited.
nice. So with this song, are you working on like a music video for it, or is that something that hasn't really crossed your mind yet for it?
It's crossed my mind. It's not something I'm actively working on though, but I do think this song hopefully is going to open the door for me to write more about myself, my upbringing. That's the goal anyway. That's
Mm-hmm.
what's really been on my mind is some of these other songs I've written the last few months and how I'm really starting to open up and show more of myself. I
Hmm.
think that's going to be the best thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you finding it easier to be now that you're like really in this headspace? Are you finding it easier or to be vulnerable like writing? Like because you'd mentioned that you had a hard time being vulnerable and kind of showing that side of yourself, but now kind of songwriting, do you find that it's easier to be vulnerable or do you still have that like I don't know if I want to do this?
It's a little bit easier. I think I keep my cards really close to my chest. So, um, part of it is sort of figuring out like, do I want to try to write this alone or which one of my co-writers and friends would this work for? Or I think all of this comes with age. I've
Hmm.
done all of the wrong things to
Yeah.
now be like, okay, this is the right way to go about it. I've pitched the wrong or the whatever idea to the wrong person and then you get a song that really wasn't quite what you were going for. So yeah, I think it is truly a muscle that you have to flex though. So having done that these last few months, it is becoming easier.
Mm,
Because we're
nice.
all on this ride together. We're
Hmm.
all trying to be vulnerable, and I think it just comes easier to some people. Um, I'm still working on it. I'm still learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, where are you kind of at? Obviously, you got this new song coming out. Where are you at kind of creatively? Are you already in the back of your head, like looking at the next one, which is crazy to kind of think of because
Yeah.
this one isn't even out yet, but, or what's kind of the plans for the rest of the year?
I think that I do want to get back in the studio as soon as possible. I would love to do an EP
Mm-hmm.
with some of these songs that I've mentioned, and I think maybe just to try to get a little more traction. I've been writing a lot of so basically the duo was we were a sort of we got compared to the Civil Wars quite a bit because we had this like dark sort of persona,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a lot more, I'd say, Southern rock influenced,
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that we released. But yeah, I'm just trying to shift that a little bit and show more of the lighthearted, sort of witty side, which is
Mm-hmm.
funny coming off of Simpleton because I mean, I don't want to say that it's really sad, but it is an emotional song.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but now I'm like, okay, scratch that itch. Now what project do I want to work on? And
Yeah.
it definitely is going to be something like fun, funny,
Yep.
witty, storytelling sort of
Yep.
songs.
For
Yeah.
sure. If you do get this EP, or if you do end up doing an EP, can I make a suggestion that you call it Midwestern AF?
Yeah, because my bio. I
I saw,
actually just changed that a little bit
yeah,
ago.
I saw that and I was like, honestly, that describes just about everyone that lives in Illinois,
Yeah,
Midwestern AF.
that's what
So
I'm saying.
it's so
And I
funny.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's noted
Okay.
for
Cool. Because I would definitely buy like a vinyl album that has like a cornfield that just says Midwestern AF.
yes.
So,
I love that.
oh, but outside of music, what do you like to get into? What's like what do you like to do?
So, yeah, my fiance is a trainer, so we love to work out. We love to travel. I've got two dogs who are my children. I love them so much. And yeah, I dog sit. I am a nanny. Um, yeah, for two different families here in town
Mm,
primarily, but then I watch my friends' dogs too. So a lot of dogs. I've
nice.
done a lot of volunteering for rescues and stuff like that. Yeah, I've had to sort of make the time to take trips this year just because I'm not on the road, and then I'm
Hmm.
like I miss like seeing new places and meeting new people and stuff. And
Hmm.
and that really is a good part of it. But yeah, I love to spend time with my family, be outdoors, go home
Nice.
and just chill.
Nice. That's really cool. I've often thought about trying to get involved with like rescues and stuff,
Hmm.
but all the rescues around where I'm at are tied up in not good publicity situations,
Hmm.
like scandals and neglect and stuff like that. And it's just like,
Oh no.
yeah, I don't really want to get involved with that. So you guys,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it's so bad everywhere right now. I've
Hmm.
heard that Texas is really bad.
Hmm.
Same with California for whatever reason seems to have a really hard time, but I really think it's all catching up from COVID.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
Everyone's like, "Oh, we're home, we're gonna get a dog," or like my dog had puppies during COVID, and then this is just the backlash of that
Hmm.
is what it seems like. It seems like they're all drowning.
Oh yeah. It's one of those things where, like you said, a lot of people went out and got dogs, and then they realized, oh, I'm not really home all the time. I can't handle this, so they take it back, and
Hmm.
then they get flooded with animals that they can't handle, and then their volunteers quit because it's too much. We had a situation not too long ago where they had to call the deputy in to remove dogs because there was nobody working at the Humane Society, and
Oh,
there was like just dogs dying in cages.
oh,
So yeah, it was bad, very
that's
bad.
terrible. God,
So
I wish I could save them all, honestly. That's
right.
my goal as we're in a townhome now, but I
Hmm.
really would love to get some land in Tennessee and try to make that happen. We've uh fostered a little bit and then we ended up foster failing our second dog 3 years ago, but yeah, I need more space.
Yeah. I'm kind of in that same boat. I'd love to get a dog, but I live in an apartment right now,
Mm.
and like I could handle like a small dog, like something that doesn't need a whole lot of space. But the reality of the situation is I'm at work most of the day,
Yeah.
and so that's just not fair to the dog.
Yeah.
So, you
Yeah.
know,
That's
it's just one of those things.
hmm
So,
I know I'm very fortunate that my fiance is able to be home as much as he is and he keeps them really active. I mean, he's always sort of like picked up that slack for
mm,
me being on the road.
nice, nice. So I don't want to keep you here too much longer.
Yeah, you're fine.
Um, where's the as far as like musically going, obviously you've got this single coming out um Friday, and then you're working on the like kind of next steps and whatnot. Even though you're not actively on the road, are you still playing shows right now, or where are you kind of at there?
Somewhat. A few writers rounds have popped up for me,
Mhm.
so like I'll definitely go play those at any point. I want to be doing more.
Mhm.
I do have a festival coming up, I think in Caulfield, Missouri on October 19th. So that'll be fun because it'll just be a different sort of vibe and I've got a couple guys coming out to play with me and make it a little bit more acoustic, than what I've been doing. We've got an upright bass and
Nice.
everything. So yeah, that's exciting, but I've known about that one and planned for it for quite some time. Um so yeah, it just kind of depends on what pops up and if it feels like it's gonna work.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm trying to convince my dad to give me his upright bass. I'm
Yeah.
trying so hard right now because he's got a 1919 K bass that he found
Really?
when he was a teenager underneath a church. Like he went to a Catholic school, so it was like underneath the school auditorium stage or something. And the teacher was like, "Oh, hey, yeah, you can have that if you could fix it," because like the bridge was broken. It was like broken in half or whatever,
Hmm.
and he fixed it up and he played it for forever. Like,
Wow.
so
Yeah, I
yeah.
love that. We have one in my family too.
Hmm.
Really old, so.
Yeah. Except I have to if he does ever give it to me, I have to take it to a luthier or somebody that can fix
Mhm.
it because one of my buddies tried to play it and he's like, yeah, this bridge, if anybody like really comes and plays this thing, this bridge is going to snap again because
Gotcha.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, I
like,
feel like naturally I'm probably well, I'm the only one that's pursued music to this degree. So I have a feeling that it's going to be up to
mhm,
me to take care of
mhm,
those items and I will. I mean, it's pretty amazing, really. My dad's got an old Martin
mhm,
guitar that was my grandma's and I won't give the specifics, but it's like just when you think you have a great playing guitar, like I have
mhm,
a Gibson that I'm obsessed with and
mhm.
I've had it for a while, 10 years actually. But you pick up that guitar and you're like, this isn't even real. Like it's genuinely crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's it you said you had that guitar. Was that your first guitar or like when you first started playing or
Um,
playing
so
seriously?
yeah, my dad has had quite a few guitars. I think I like started learning on like a guild, I
Mm-hmm.
think, and then he got a Taylor with a pickup, and so that's what I started using for open mics and stuff. But I think once he realized that I was serious, like midway through college, so like at 20, we went and found the Gibson songwriter that I have now at
Mm-hmm.
Carter's Vintage Guitars. So yeah, and she's been my baby. I call her Gabby.
Nice.
Gabby Gibson.
Nice.
Yeah.
I I need to get better at naming things because I name them like old white people names. Like my car's name is Bertha for some reason.
Okay, yeah.
So I need to get better at that. So um and then before we wrap this up, one thing I always like to ask the people that live in Nashville,
Mm-hmm.
where is your favorite non-touristy place to go and hang out in Nashville? With the insiders, where do the locals go that you like to hang out?
Non-touristy is a great question. Because if it were touristy, it has to be Roberts. It's always gonna be Roberts. Like to me, there's quite literally nothing better than that. So a couple times a year, I will make the trek down to Broadway.
Yeah.
But I've recently been at Bobby's Idol Hour
Hmm.
like a lot this
Yeah.
summer, and I just love it. So that
Nice.
is like a place that you're gonna find the best songwriters in town. And nothing against like the listening room or
Hmm.
things like that, but they are more targeted to the families that are out of
Hmm.
town coming to visit and buying tickets and stuff. So the songwriter hangout, it's definitely Bobby's.
Hmm.
And then I have to give a shout out to 51 Tap Room,
Hmm.
the Nations, because we literally eat there all the time. It's
Fair.
like,
Fair.
it's the best. So.
I will share one story with you because I think it's absolutely hilarious. I had we were doing a live podcast, like we wanted to bring a bunch of musicians in, play a song, have an audience there, all this stuff. And so it was during CMA Fest, and I asked a friend, I was like, "Hey, do you have any bar connects?" Because she was a bar server, bartender for a lot of years. I was
Mhm.
like, "Hey, do you have any connects in Nashville? Nothing on the strip, but just like something that would be a little like you're not going to have a bunch of like tourists in there, you know?"
Yeah. Mhm.
And she was like, "Okay, I got a place for you. It's called No Quarter. The owner, I know the owner really well. School dude, you're good there." And I'm like, "Okay." So I reached out to the owner, set it up. He kept telling me it was a pinball bar. And I'm like, "Okay, that's cool, different."
Uh-huh.
And I come in there with five country musicians, like cowboyed out.
Mhm.
It's a punk bar. Like they play punk,
Oh,
like
really?
they have punk bands there all the time. And I walk
Oh.
in with like all these country musicians and they're blaring like 90s hip hop music. And everybody looks like they just got done seeing like Blink 182 or something. And
Yeah.
it's just like,
Wow. I've never heard of that place, I don't
yeah,
think.
it's in East Nashville.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
see, I live on the west side, so I'm not like as familiar with East, and
mm,
there's some great
yeah.
places there, but yeah, I haven't heard of that.
Yeah. It was just kind of a weird situation because
Mhm.
I knew it was going to be like a vintage place, but I wasn't expecting the 90s hip hop
Yeah, for
mixed with
sure.
like grunge rock punk musicians. So
Yeah.
it's a whole thing.
Hey.
Um, but yeah, no, Nashville's really cool. I enjoy it. I keep saying I hope to move there, but I really enjoy Texas, so I don't really know what to do right now. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
what part of Texas?
I live in Waco.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So literally between Dallas and Austin. So
Nice.
it's almost perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Uh
mean, I love Nashville now, but like I said, I struggled for a while.
mhm,
Because I am super close with my family, so I think that regardless of where I would have moved, I would have struggled for a bit. It
mhm,
definitely feels like home now.
mhm.
Although I'm totally one of those people that travels, and then I'm like, oh, I think I could move here, like
Yeah.
1000%.
Oh yeah.
But Nashville's such a hub,
Yeah.
like I didn't quite understand it until I moved here, but people saying like, well, I mean, you kind of do have to be here, depending on what your goals are.
Hmm.
My goals kind of lean toward I do need to be here surrounded by people that are doing the same thing that I am and for travel purposes.
Hmm.
Um, and I also have had those last minute calls like, hey, can you come sing at this prestigious studio tomorrow night at 6? And I'm like, yeah, like
Yeah, I'll be there.
yeah, and I forgot to mention that's something else I've been doing is really been enjoying doing background vocals for other artists
Oh,
and
nice.
their records and stuff. But yeah, it's like you gotta be in town. I couldn't make that trip from
Right.
Illinois.
Right.
So
And it's one of those things where living where I don't know what the airport's like in Springfield, but I can't imagine it's very big.
No,
Uh, Having to go to like St. Louis to hit a flight to Nashville, it's like at that point you're just better off driving, in my
I
opinion. But
know. Well, genuinely, that's what my sister does all the
mhm,
time. She's like, I'm just gonna drive because it's
right,
not that big of a deal at the end of the day,
right,
which is nice. It's
yeah,
not crazy far. Some of my friends have way long drives, and mine's pretty
yeah,
easy.
it's chill, yeah.
Mhm.
And well, I mean, you're going up 55. You're not even really going up 57, right?
I can't really remember right now. I'm like, am I on 57 for a hot second? Because we go through Clarksville, through
Hmm.
Paducah, then up through
Yeah.
Marion,
Okay,
and
so then you would be
then on
okay.
50.
So then you cut over to 55 from like Marion or Effingham or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's I don't I you could tell I make that drive all the time. It's like, oh, I take 35 to 40 to 57 and just go straight up, you know?
Yeah.
It's one of the few road trips where it's like if I lost my GPS, I'd figure out how to get myself there because it's really not that hard. So,
Mhm. For sure.
but
Yeah, I agree.
awesome. But I really appreciate your time.
Oh, yeah.
If
You.
anybody wants to check out your music, any of that fun stuff, where's the best place to find you?
So I am on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook at Rylie Bourne Music. And then I'm just figuring out my website should be up ASAP. And that's just RylieBourne.com. Um, yeah, and then on Spotify, Apple Music, just Rylie Bourne
Awesome.
or
Well,
any platform.
yeah, awesome, awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time. It's been an absolute blast. It almost feels like reminiscing at this
Yeah,
point. You know, it's just like
yeah,
I remember that. So,
I know.
uh,
Same. Thank you for having me.
yeah, absolutely. And then thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will catch y'all later.